I've been a coach in the personal branding domain for almost 12, 13 years now. And the very first thing I ask of my clients or the batches that I'm conducting a training for, the first question I always ask is, why would you do whatever you want to do? So people come to me asking for inputs or trying to come across to my company seeking inputs on how can they do their business better. My first question is, why do you do what you do? And the second question is, uh, behind that entire why, do you really know who you are? And that question normally gets no answers or very bland answers. When I say bland answers, the typical answers where somebody would present a business card, I am Dr. XYZ, so there's a degree, but I've done my MBA or post-graduation certification from IIM or IIT. That is their qualification, and that is what they feel they are. uh, a lot of people, once we get into that discussion, they are left at their wits' ends to describe who am I. And this question has been answered very effectively. It has been in our domain, in our ecosystem, for more than 10,000 years, with all the work that our Rishi Munis have done, all the work that our ancient sages have done. It's already been there in print on the scriptures. It has been told to us over these last many generations. However, our antennas might not have been focused enough to gather those messages, process that specific input, and maybe work that into our own lives. To help us do that better, we have with us this evening Shriman Pratap Rudra Das Prabhuji.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Madriji.
Uh, Pratap Rudra Das Prabhuji has studied ancient Sanskrit texts in depth for more than a decade and a half, particularly the Bhagavad Gita. And his passion to share the insights and worldviews these texts offer have also made him a leadership coach. He keeps going around and sharing those lessons that he has taken in with a lot of people, a lot of organizations and individuals have been benefiting through that. Driven by a passion in science and information technology, had him graduate in this field. But then there was still a vacuum which was, not filled. That vacuum in search for fulfillment and happiness, which was merely a promise from the lifestyle that the world staged, that was still around, and that was not filled up. He met his match in the ideology that he had, that simple living, high thinking, when he came across Bhaktivedanta, Swami Srila Prabhupada's books. Since then, he has been enthusiastic to share these timeless principles with the wider society and has accepted a role as a mentor, friend, and counselor. Uh, there's a lot more that I can share about him, about the visit that he had to my home and how we uh, educated our family on how to actually recite mantras. That would possibly a session that we'll request him to take for us sometime in the future. uh, Prabhuji, with your permission, can I put the first query or inquiry that I had always unanswered from the spiritual perspective?
Sure. You're most welcome. Yes.
So the first query, Prabhuji, is we always keep hearing this statement, or we have read this many times in our history books, or we have heard it from our grandparents, that whoever has been somebody in the past, great kings, sages, 2000 years back, 5000 years back, we've heard and read this statement many times, that this person was in search of himself. He was in search for a higher meaning of life. He was in search for something that allows him to find, why am I born? Why is this birth of mine? Is it really going to be useful? Do we believe really that in order to live a life that is a happy life, I also, or rather all of us also need to go in this search? And if we need to go in this search, how can I really make that happen? Because I don't know what to look for. Because this question to me, go and search your purpose of life, go and search who you are. This question can be very, very daunting and very confusing. Uh, can you please tell us from your perspective, how exactly do we go and search for the purpose of life? Or how do I find myself?
Sure. Thank you to have us here on your youth talks. It's indeed a privilege to be part of this, and we look forward to help a lot of people Of course, we're doing the bit in feeding children and the needy. But there is some need of food for thought. There are different classes of people as per the scriptures, and as we can see in reality, everybody doesn't have the same taste. As we can see, even twins, even though they look very similar, but they do not have a similar taste. So yes, this is a very fundamental question, which is the part of the Vedic literatures, and I'm sure about most of the people have come across this, or they are looking for answers towards this. Some people just brush it off, leave it off. Yeah, when time comes, it will be happening. So just to start off with, I remember from my personal life, I would like to just talk about a short experience. Well, since I hail from Rajasthan, but I've grown up in an East African country called Uganda, and lately I think the Prime Minister had also visited that beautiful country. Why I say it's beautiful? Because it's agriculturally very rich, and the people there are very friendly in one sense. So when I was in the village in Rajasthan, Rajasthan houses were quite simple, and we had this jali over our head when I was when I was very young, and I was along with my dad. So we were sleeping together on our wooden cot, looking at the stars, gazing at the stars. And my curious mind asked my dad, what are these stars? I mean, what are they doing there? And who are we? So he said, oh, stars, yeah, these are people who left their bodies, and yeah. So I asked him, is that my grandfather? Is that my mom? Is that? So I had this query, but I was not satisfied. Now, as we grow, we go to school, and then we go further to college, and there also in our education system, we do not have these fundamental answers, because we are taught to identify ourselves with a particular tag, with a few letters of names which are given to us. So the identity crisis which we live with is what we have to solve. And that's what the Bhagavad Gita or the scriptures give us, a profound ocean of knowledge to deeply dig into this. Because it's not sufficient just to know, but also to act in that line.
Absolutely.
And it is very unfortunate that today, since we do not know our identity, or we adopt an identity which has been given to us, we act in a particular way. Just like if you have a person in a house who's haunted by a ghost, just imagine, how will he act? I've heard of a family. It's a very unfortunate situation. Is a very young boy who's about 16, 17 years old. He's got an elder brother and a mother, but no father. So they take care of him, and he acts erratically. I mean, there isn't a fixed kind of thing or a particular kind of mode he's going to answer, just like we see regularly with our day-to-day dealings with our normal person. So likewise, the issue is the people in the material world or in this world, because we have adopted a particular kind of an identity, we tend to act in that identity, whether as a man, woman, boy, girl, dog, cat. So the conscious beings, because as you said, we actually deal with consciousness. So the conscious being, he has an inquisitive nature. Who is that person? Oh, I am this body, I'm a boy. So who is that girl? Because I don't have an experience of other bodies. Oh, what? Oh, that's called a dog. Oh, that's called a table. Oh, this is called this. This is called that. So that is why scriptures tell us a conscious being has a curious nature. But all the curious natures do not meet their matches with the people around we live with. And yes, culture does play a big role. In fact, it's because of culture that many people are saved from bad habits or a kind of a livelihood which they would have gotten into wrong hands. But that is not sufficient, because just living a culture of a polished life is not sufficient to give you satisfaction and happiness. In fact, we all conscious beings are living for one factor, and that is happiness. I hope all of you agree with that. And it's very fundamental. And I'll also further speak to you, why do we look for this? Why do we look for this? Why do we look for happiness? I mean, who goes to another person and says, give me some sadness? Who goes to another person or a situation of praise to God? God, I have been happy for a long time now. Now you should give me some sadness so that I can have a balance of both, because I want to be in the material world where everything has to be balanced. In fact, many times what we do not want comes and falls in our plate, and we really don't know what to do with it. And this happens at different phases of our life. In fact, if you've heard many of, because what happens is, we have been taught from our education system that you have to earn money. Money is sweeter than honey. So when you have money in your hands, you can fulfill all your desires. You can get whatever gadget you want. You can get whatever kind of a house or a lifestyle, so that ultimately, what do you want to be? Happy. But the question is, do these gadgets make us happy? Does the bungalow you live in make you happy? Does the society you live in make you happy? We need to delve into these thoughts, because the reality is, happiness is not just outside, it's right deep inside. The happiness we encounter is temporary in nature. That's what is said in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says that Adi antavanta kaunteya na teshu ramate buddha. Na teshu ramate buddha. Buddha means an intelligent person. So na teshu ramate. Ramate means enjoyers. Rama, we know the word Rama. Rama means the source of the supreme enjoyer, the source of bliss. So na ramate buddha. A Buddha does not enjoy these kind of happinesses. Oh, why? I mean, that's happiness. You're looking for that happiness. Oh, mind you, that happiness has a beginning, has an end. And this is something we've experienced before. Just like, I remember when I was in school, I was like kind of the top 3 guys. So when I reached there, it was like, wow. And then the next term starts, we're all equal. So that doesn't matter. Now you go, you get a good job. Oh, wow. Oh, this is something I want to do. And then later you find out your boss is not good, or the work ethics are not good, or the environment is not good. This is not good. That is not good. So essentially we are looking false in everything outside, but we are not ready to change ourselves from inside.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So now this is where it's a paramount need to understand these 3 words, who am I? So Srila Prabhupada, our spiritual master, the founder Acharya of ISKCON and International Society for Krishna Consciousness, Hare Krishna movement, he gives a very simple, logical answer. He says, and I'm sure most of you know English, so I hope I'll be able to communicate properly in this. He says, so now I have a pen in my hand. So I'm going to address this pen. So what is my address to this pen? This is my pen. Mind you, be very careful, please be very attentive. This is my pen. So what is the existence? Now we are talking about identities. So my identity is different. I am separate. This pen is separate. But it belongs to me. That's why I say it's my pen. I have a relationship with it. Now you take any part of this body of yours. Let us start with the hand. This is my hand. This is my head. This is my eye. This is my nose, my mouth, take any part of your body. You're saying it is my head, my lungs, my heart. So coming back to this, the axiomatic truth that in the first state we said this is different from you. That's why you call this my pen, because it has a relationship with you. So it belongs to you and you use it. Similarly, you're saying this entire body from top to from this, the tip of your hair down to your feet, the sole of your feet. You're saying my parts. So now the multi-dollar question is, who am I? So first thing, very clear, I'm not this body. Now, I mean, it's a very relieving realization if you get the realization. This is just knowledge. What is the realization? Other than the body. It's something which is happening to the body. Acha, when something happens to you, you're not well, or somebody told you something and your mind got little disturbed. Oh, that's not me. It was told to something which belongs to me. So the first relieving statement which Krishna gives to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, because Bhagavad Gita has 700 verses, and in fact Bhagavad Gita is also an Upanishad. It's called as Gita Upanishad, and Upanishads basically are further more elevated knowledge is there more than the Vedas, because the Vedas, 4 Vedas are there. They talk about the 3 modes of material natures and all that. Upanishad is where you start inquiring about these questions. Who am I? This is where the answers start actually. So that is why Bhagavad Gita is a very essential book in the sense it is a manual which teaches you about yourself, about what this cosmic manifestation is, who's the controller and all. There are 5 basic topics which I will later on tell you. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Dehino asmin yatha dehe komaram yovanam jara tata dehantara prapte dhiras tatra namuhyati. Dehino asmin yatha dehe. Dehe means the body. Dehino asmin, one who is seated in the body. Dehino asmin yatha dehe, in this body. Komaram Yovanam Jara. Now this entire line is on this body here. Komaram Yovanam and Jara. I'm sure you've already caught those words. Komaram means childhood. Just remember, some few years back, you were a child. So were you that? Oh no, yeah, I was that. But now I'm no longer that, because that body has changed. That body has changed. So Komaram, now it has become Yovanam, youth. So in the childhood, we are very frivolous. We're just running around and we don't have, the entire success is, oh, play and whole day just play around and waste some time and just say that, oh, I had a wonderful day. And when you grow a little older, your terminology changes, your success changes, your understanding of who you are is changing. Now your desires are changing. So you start thinking, those toys, I don't play with those toys, which I was crying for to my parents. Please get me that toy. I remember when we were traveling from Uganda to India, we used to go via Dubai. So Dubai is well known for gold and all those kind of things. So I remember when I went to that duty-free mall, I was hell-bent to get one toy. What was the toy? A gun. And what was that gun? Nothing. It just has a light on it. If you press that button, that light is there and sound comes. That's it. So I was crying and crying, and my dad was saying, it's not really required for you. Why do you want that? I'm saying, no, I want that. Please get me that. Please. So today, if I look at that as a memory, where is that toy? I was hell-bent for that. I was crying. I was rolling on the ground. Please get me that, because that will give me happiness. And if that was to give me a continuous happiness, why am I not having it now with me? Because that cannot give you an eternal happiness. It can give you a temporary happiness. Adivanta konte, adi antavanta konteya. Now, in like that, any object you take in this material world, it can only give you temporary happiness. That's what is essential to understand. So then Krishna further goes on to say that Komaram yovanam jara tatha dehantara praptir. So when you leave this body, when death occurs means change of a body. Already we are changing actually. It's called as the principle of persistence. Even though we were 5 years old, now today I am 35 years old, still I feel I'm the same person. And I'm sure you all feel like that. Has the feeling changed? Are you different? No, you still feel the same. But the body has changed. And likewise, Krishna is saying, at the time of death, oh my God, don't talk about death, Prabhuji. Isn't it? When we start discussing this kind of subject matters in a society, people say, oh, death is very inauspicious. Swamiji, don't talk about death. But death is a reality. And we should become seekers of the truth. Let us not be seekers of, rubbing my back and your back, and I just crack a joke and you laugh and say, oh, Swamiji gave a very nice lecture. Swamiji, when can I come and meet you? You are a very good humorous person. I mean, these things are temporary. It really does not make a great difference in your life and my life. What is essential is, let us become seekers of the truth. Truth is very beautiful.
It is.
If it is understood in the right perspective, truth is very, very beautiful. Though sometimes it is unpalatable. It may not be palatable always. It all depends on who is presenting it also. So now, Krishna is saying here, when the time of death comes, you leave your body. Okay, what happens at the time of death? I mean, what happens? People start mourning. Oh, he's gone. Just like a few days back, we all know two actors, Bollywood actors, who were very close to our hearts, or most of the hearts. No, they're not there. I mean, the person who was making me laugh. In fact, now the hits of or the viewership of Irfan Khan's movies and Rishi Kapoorji's movies, they're all increasing because now people feel the absence of them. So the question is, now when they're dead, the dead bodies, where is Rishi Kapoor? He's the same body, same blood running around. So what has left that body? That is what Krishna is saying, that Dehi, the one who is sitting in the body. And we've got immense literatures to give us. In fact, you go to any village also, you ask them this question here, this fundamental, who are you? Swamiji, I am this and this. Later he'll say, no, I've heard from scriptures, I've heard from Swamijis and other people, I am a soul. I'm a spirit soul. Excuse me. I am Satchid Ananda. I'm made of eternity. I don't want to die. Who wants to die here? Tell me. No, Swamijis, some people are there who want to die because they're frustrated. I mean, if you look at a person who commits suicide, he also does not want to die. It's out of frustration or out of the circumstances. Somebody takes that kind of a decision, which is very unfortunate. It should not be done, unfortunately. It's because the mind is not in a proper balance. So, Krishna is saying here, you have to become a dhira. Dhiras tatra na muhyati. Muhyati means he's not bewildered. He's not overwhelmed. When a close person leaves his body in your family, what happens to us? We are heartbroken. We're not able to gather ourselves. Just recently, a known person's father has passed away. And he called me up. I was in a meeting, so I could not attend his first call. Immediately as I got free from the meeting, I called him up. And what did I hear on the other side? I heard his cries, heartfelt cries. His heart was weeping and it was showing in his expressions. Prabhu, my father has passed away. So then, I mean, at this moment, I cannot quote this Bhagavad Gita shloka to him because it does not look palatable and it doesn't know, even though it's truth. But there is a way to present the truth. So I gave him solacing words. I told, don't worry, please chant Hare Krishna. And once all these things get over, once you've done the rituals, please do call me. We will do a puja and prayer for your father's, the departed soul. So now essential point is, he's going through that because he's connected with that person. I am not going through those emotions. Why? Because if you have the transcendental knowledge, you can keep yourself together. That's what a sober person, an intelligent person is not overwhelmed by these things. So in the scriptures, in the Shastras, what is most essential thing is this liberates you. Many times people think, oh, spiritual knowledge, it kills your ambition, your material life will get over. No, that's not true. That's a great misconception. In fact, on the contrary, spiritual knowledge will liberate you. Can you imagine? You are not disturbed with what happens outside in the world. You are overwhelmed with internal knowledge, and you are able to keep yourself balanced because you are aware that yes, there is a constant change, a constant flux of change happening in the external world. That's why it's called a shara. It's always changing. Change is constant outside. But that which does not change is the internal thing. It's eternal. So when you're talking about being someone, your identity, because without identity, you cannot function. But giving a very nice analogy, please understand this analogy. It's a very wonderful analogy. It's helped me a lot. I've heard from my senior God brothers, and I've also shared with a lot of people. Just imagine you're a part of a play where you have to play like a king. Now, essentially, for those 2 hours of practice, you have taken up a role of a king and you're commanding respect. Just at your call and beck and call, 10 people are standing and saying, hey, get me this, get me that, get me this, get me that. Now, after 2 hours, if I am still in that mood, that high mood of a king, and I go outside, I tell the cab driver, hey, open the door. Is he going to open the door? Hey, look here, what is this crazy person? Say, I am a king. You should open the door for me. Say, Baba, you're my customer. If you want to sit in the cab, please open it. Sit, let's go. No, I'm a king. So when we are doing a role play, it has to be done in the consciousness that it is just a role play. Now, unfortunately, this role play has become my identity, and I carry that identity because it's a false identity. It's a temporary identity. So when I am doing the show or I'm getting practice, now say the day of the show has come, there are 2 things I should remember. What is the purpose of this role play? I should act in such a way that I please the audience. Second thing, I should know it is just a role play. So that is what Krishna is telling Arjuna. Your role play is a Kshatriya. You cannot run away from this role play. In fact, on the contrary, Arjuna is saying, I'll beg like a Brahmana, live it, let it go. And Krishna says, no. You have to do your role play and you have to do your duty. So, if we can solve this problem, now see, it's not just a question of knowledge. You purchase a Bhagavad Gita which would cost you about 250 rupees or 300 rupees, and you think you've understood, or you read it and say, okay, Swamiji, no, it's not so. You have to realize this knowledge. That's why in the 9th chapter, Krishna says, Jnana Vijnana Sahitam Sa Moksha Se Ashubhat. This knowledge is not just a theoretical knowledge, it's a practical knowledge, and it will remove inauspiciousness from your life. Ashubhat. Like I'm sure many of the traditional people's houses, they put this 2 words, Shubh, and what is the second one? Labh. Yeah. So Shubh, auspiciousness. Everybody wants auspiciousness in their life. And Labh means, gain. But they don't know how to get this Shubh. And Krishna is saying, Ashubha. First you have to get Ashubha, inauspiciousness out of your life, and welcome auspiciousness. So that's what is being given by this wonderful book, Bhagavad Gita, which is actually the essence of the entire Vedic literatures. Vedescha sarver aham eva vedyam. Krishna is saying, from the Vedas I am to be known. because Vedas are very big, very vast, and today we do not have the time, the patience. And Swamiji, you know, Vedas are for all you guys. We are very busy. We have a lot of things to do. I'm a grahastha. I have my own mind problems, mind issues. I have my wife's issues. I have got my son's issues. I've got my work issues. Where will I sit and read Vedas and all that? Yeah, that's fact. I agree. In fact, not only you, in 5,000 years back, a very qualified person like Arjun is saying to Krishna, Krishna, this is very difficult. I cannot do these things. I can't leave my family and go to the Himalayas and sit like a yogi, do pranayam every day, live on some dry fruits or some leaves, and then I'll realize who God is. Yeah. Because he's a man with a lot of duties, with a lot of responsibilities, like you and me. So Krishna is saying, one has to learn how to be in the material world, in among the society, but be detached from the society. A very good example is given in the 5th chapter, text number 10. Krishna gives the analogy of the lotus flower. Padma patram ivam bhasa. So lotus flowers are always born in dirty, murky waters. But if you look at their leaves and that flower, they're detached from the dirty water. Likewise, one should become detached from all this materialistic emotions or disturbances, pleasures and pains, and engage in your duties so that you can please. Now, what are the duties meant for? To please Yagna, Yagneshwara. Because any action has an equal and opposite reaction. This is a law. So anything we act just with a fruitive mentality, I will enjoy the result, you will be got into a bondage. You will be caught up in the bondage. So that is why Krishna says, Yagnartha anyatra karmana lokoyam karma bandhana. Karma bandhan means anything which is not done for the pleasure of the Lord, it binds us. Then the next question is, oh, my profession is nothing to do with Krishna or God. Many people think like that. Swamiji, so will I eternally be in bondage? No. Every profession, except for professions which are in ignorance, like butchering and killing, that's a very unfortunate kind of a situation where you're unfortunately killing other living entities. Otherwise, per se, all the other professions can be used to glorify the Lord. It's an art, it has to be learnt under somebody's guidance, superior guidance. So, coming to the conclusion to this first question is, one has to dig deep into his understanding. He is not this material body. He is not just this mind here. Mind is also... See, we have two kinds of bodies. Sthul Sharir, Sukshma Sharir. Sthul Sharir is made of the Panchabhutas, gross body, and we have the subtle body which is made of 3 elements. Manas, Buddhi, Ahankar. Mind, intelligence, false ego. Ego means identity. So we are talking about identity. So false identity, thinking I am this. Now just imagine yourself in front of 150 screens. So one screen is, oh, I am a father to a son. Another screen is, I am a husband to a wife. Another screen is, I am a boss to. So we have a lot of identities throughout the day. And we are changing our identities based on the time and circumstance. Say you go to office, your co-worker, will you deal with her the way you deal with your wife? I mean, if you do that, she'll be like, oh my God, what's wrong with this guy here? Didn't he have breakfast today? Yeah, you change your identity. The moment you see somebody else, oh, your background has the knowledge of that person, tuck, it comes to the foreground and you say, huh, this is a co-worker, I have to behave with her in a particular way. That means she has to accept certain orders from me to execute that work so that it plays a role in the entire vision of the company. And now if you go to your house and then you deal with your wife the way you deal with your co-worker, hey, get me a glass of water. And my wife, okay, I'll get you a glass of water, then I'll deal with you later. So we do change identities. These identities are temporary. but we have an eternal identity of our own, and we need to know that. Because if we live, because we have to live parallelly that life. We have to balance material, spiritual, both, because we are spiritual beings on a material journey, not material beings on a spiritual journey. I heard this statement, is a very famous statement, and I'm sure most of you have heard this. It's a very, very wonderful statement to really sit with and think over. It's a food for thought. Oh, I'm a spiritual being on a material journey. I'm not a material being on a spiritual journey. And that solves a lot of problems. So yes, we have to know this eternal identity, and we also have to know the role play we have to do. So the role play, and that will save us from a lot of misconceptions we have. You know, there are people, I mean, today youngsters are overpowered by this habits, bad habits. Some people are not able to give up those bad habits. Like pornography is a habit, it's a very bad habit, and it sucks the energy of the person. In a young youth, you know, who is bubbling with energy, if he goes through these kind of, if it sucks his entire, what kind of person will he be? Mentally disturbed, depressed. We've heard of a lot of cases. I've been counseling some people also with this kind of cases. But yes, this can be solved if you have a good guidance from a proper mentor. And see, it's not just giving up that bad habit. We need to also learn what is positive in life. What is that I can do? See, your young people have a lot of, in fact, India has got 65% of young bubbling energy. Imagine what kind of direction we can give our country. So I hope, Himantri ji, I have answered the first question, because there are a lot of other questions and this can go on for a long time. So I'll just like to pause here and go for the next question. Please do ask the next question.
The last bit that you mentioned, Prabhuji, was we need to, dig deep into ourselves, discover the real me, maybe disconnect myself and understand that I am a spiritual being on a materialistic journey. And to help me in this journey, I need to find out a mentor or a guru. Now, if someone isn't following any spiritual or a religious order or a specific system, doesn't have a mentor or a guru, does it mean that the person is doomed? Will that person not be able to carve out a strong self-image or a personal brand that can reach out to a lot of people? That plus one more thing, Prabhuji. Dvitiya Adhyay, verse 47, it says, Karmane vadikaraste mahaphaleshu kadachana. Now, if I just need to have a have my actions be absolutely righteous. So the verse says that if you have a right to perform your prescribed duties, but I'm not entitled to the fruits of my actions. So,
oh yes, definitely.
would it not be sufficient for me not to have a guru, not to read scriptures, but this would it not be sufficient that knowledge that whatever I do it with a lot of good karma behind me? I'm not hurting anyone, disturbing anyone. Will that not take me to my desired materialistic destination?
Oh, it's a very nice question, and I thank the participant in the audience who has asked this wonderful question.
This was my question, actually.
Acha, it's your question. Okay, that's so nice, Himandri. See, now coming to the fundamental aspect of whether one should have a guru or not. In the Munduka Upanishad, it's mentioned, Tasma gurum prapadyeta jignashu shreya uttamam. So, the first of all, I would like to quote a very famous physicist, Mr. Albert Einstein. He mentions that you cannot solve a problem from the platform where you created the problem. Now, we have created a problem from a certain kind of an angle of thinking, certain kind of feeling and willing. And our mind, that's why we call this as mental blocks. Because I identify myself with my body, next level I identify with my mind, with my intellect. So many times you see there is a lot of difference even in the leadership forums. Many people say that a leader is one who gives an opportunity for others to express themselves. not to be like a boss and say, this is what you have to do. Because he does not get into a mental block that whatever I say is perfect. So a humble person says, yes, I have a lot of issues which I have created and I cannot solve it. So the next question is, I should look for a person who can solve these problems. And for the case study, there is no other perfect example than the example of Arjuna. Can you imagine? What Arjuna was going through is much, million times more than what we are going through. But the kind of problems are very much similar, but the intensities may be different. I mean, you don't have your grandfather, your uncles, your friends in front of you and you have to kill them, do you? But he has to do that. Do or die. It's do or die. You have to kill them or they'll kill you. And this situation has not been created by Arjuna also. Arjuna did not create this situation. It got created. In fact, they tried a lot of ways to have a peace settlement with Duryodhan. Duryodhan was damn stagnant with his understanding. In fact, there are a lot of ways and things to learn from this Vedic personalities. Duryodhan was hell-bent, said not even a, you have a pin, the tip of the pin, he's saying, I'm not willing to give even the tip of the pin kind of a size of a land to this Pandavas. And what did they, in fact, Krishna went with as a peace formula and as a peace messenger, and he said, just give them 5 villages. How much? 5 villages. I mean, they didn't even ask for towns and cities. And because they're Kshatriyas, so their nature is that the nature demands this kind of a thing that they have to rule over others. But here we can see that Duryodhana was unwilling to even give that much of a land because he's not ready to share that. Now, when Arjuna was seeing all these things, very interesting thing happened. The entire scenario. I'm just depicting the scenario. Please be with me. Now, just imagine the Pandavas, the Kauravas. The Pandavas have got 7 Akshohini, the size of 7 Akshohinis of army, and here we have 11 Akshohinis army. So when Duryodhan looked at the Pandavas, he was actually a little afraid. Now you may be thinking, 11 versus 7, 4 ज़्यादा है ना, तो फिर क्यों Duryodhan is becoming disturbed? In fact, Duryodhan thought only these 5 people are going to come. But to his surprise, he saw 7 Akshohinis. That is why if you read the first chapter, he goes immediately to his guru, the commander-in-chief, to the Dronacharya. And he alerts Dronacharya. In fact, Duryodhan was very, very good at diplomacy. He says that, oh, look at Pandava's army. And they're all arranged. This phalanx of armies are arranged by your dear disciple, Drishtyadumna. No. So very indirectly, he's telling Drishtyadumna was actually born to King Dronacharya in their Gurukul days. Later on, there was a duel between them in the sense he insulted him and then the Dronacharya used Arjuna and he overpowered. I'm not going to get into details. But then Duryodhana is just sending a signal to Dronacharya that you see, don't become lenient. Because Duryodhana knows the most powerful warriors he has. In fact, he had a lot of, if you look in material strength, there is no comparison with the Pandavas. Nowhere. Pandavas nowhere. In fact, it's mentioned in the Mahabharata. A general of fish called Timingla, which can even swallow whales. Can you imagine? Whales. Whale is the biggest mammal. And Timinglas can eat up whales. So it is said Bhishma, Drona, Kripacharya, Karna, they're all like Timinglas, and Arjuna is just like a whale. The Pandavas are just like small whales. But we hear from history, these 5 people defeated this entire. So now essential point is, when Arjuna became overwhelmed with this kind of grief, he was grief stricken to such an extent. I'm just comparing the situation. In fact, the situation was more severe for Arjuna. Just put yourself in Arjuna's situation, where you had to do your first public speech in your school. What was your situation? Can you recall your situation? Was it a very pleasant situation? Definitely not. You know, your hands were sweating and you had droplets of sweat coming from every part of your body, and you're shaking, and the topic is given to you and your hands are shaking to read that topic, and not a word is coming out because your throat is fully dried up, and you're like, oh, somehow you must some kind of a strength and say some 2-3 words, and then you look at your teacher, can I do it next time? And then you come out of that situation. So that was a similar situation Arjuna was in. His Gandiva, he could not hold his Gandiva, his throat was choking, he had sweat all over his body because he was overwhelmed by compassion. He thought, how can I kill my own people? Because, now why am I saying this? All these people are arrayed to fight. The conch has been blown. Blowing the conch is the auspicious beginning of something, even during that time, because this was a dharma yudh. That's why these conches were used, not the way we fight with, like cats and dog with my husband, wife ka ek cheez raha hai. Brother and sisters, the way they fight. I remember I used to fight with my sister. I used to pull her hair. She used to pull my. That's called as cats and dogs fights. But this is dharma yudh. So here, everything is ready. Suddenly Arjuna tells Krishna, Krishna, can you take me in the middle of the army? And Krishna understood his mind, because Krishna is not an ordinary person. Of course, he's his dear friend, but not an ordinary person. He's the Supreme Personality. He understood. And purposely, Krishna takes him in front of Dronacharya and Bhishma Dev. Purposely. And Arjuna is looking. The moment he looks at Bhishma, all this thing, the moment you look at somebody, what happens? Your relation, your understanding, his love, his care, if he's a good person, of course, his love, his care, everything comes in the foreground, and you're overwhelmed with those feelings of attachment. Oh, my grandfather. He looked this side, he found Dronacharya. Oh, my teacher. He looked that side, Duryodhan, my cousin. Oh, that's my friend. Oh, these are my relatives. Oh, these are these. So just imagine, after all these things, he lost all composure. And he started giving, there are 5 reasons he gave. Of course, I will not delve into that, but they're very wonderful arguments. It's an argument. These are arguments for not fighting, for not doing his duty. And all these arguments are happening with his dear friend, Krishna. Then, after this entire scene of him living the Gandiva, sitting down with all rejection, this all happens to us, isn't it? Isn't this true? It all happens. You're rejected, your project has not moved, you have a lot of loans to pay back, and ghar pe aate, Bibi is shouting at you, this is not there, that is not there, I have to purchase. What happens to you? You get into depression. Oh, just leave me alone. Chhod do yaar mere ko akele. Chodo. And then you just go into one room and shut yourself up. And then all thoughts keep running. How am I going to solve this problem? Because you cannot solve these problems on the platform. You've created it. That is why most of the times people come out of these problems either by they read wonderful books like the Bhagavad Gita, or they call someone, they call another mentor, and problem with them, and then they get some kind of a solace by their instructions. So likewise, when all this thing was happening, very interestingly, Arjuna submitted himself. And this is the verse, 2nd chapter, text number 7. It goes like this: Karpanya dosho pahata svabhavaha prichhami tvam dharma samoda chetaha Yashya nishchitam bruhi tanme shishyastema tam aham prapannam. Now this verse is very nicely stated. He says, Karpanya dosha pahata swabhava. My swabhava has become karpanya. It has become miserly. It has become small. जैसे हम बोलते हैं ना, छोटा दिमाग, छोटी बुद्धि. We use these words, right? छोटी बुद्धि वाला है, इतना भी नहीं समझ सकता. Like that, he's putting himself into that situation that now I become a छोटी बुद्धि person. I can not solve this problem. Karpanya dosha swabhava. Dharma samudha chetaha. I am bewildered by the statements of the dharma itself. One place they're aggressors, because aggressors you can kill them. One who kidnaps the wife, just like Lord Ramachandra. Ravana kidnapped Sita Maya, so he became an aggressor, and it is rightful for Rama to go and kill Ravana. There are 6 kinds of aggressors. So another aggressor is who usurps the land by force. Your property, somebody usurps it by force. That's exactly what Duryodhana was doing. Or one who gives poison, one who sets your house on fire. So all these kind of things the Kauravas had actually done. And it was very rightful as per the dharma for Arjuna to kill them. But he's saying, Prichhami tvam dharma samuda cheta. I am actually confused. Now, Krishna, I beg you, I want to surrender. I'm taking the role of a disciple. Please instruct me, because you know what is good for me. Likewise, just like the case of Arjuna, we also need to find tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadakshanti te jnaninas tattvadarshina. You have to look for a tattvadarshi, not somebody who has little more knowledge than you. No. Who has actually had darshan. Darshan means who knows the truth, the absolute truth. To that person, Krishna is saying, you search, you find. Now, once you find, what are you supposed to do? Tad vidhi pranipatena. Pranipat, nipat, pranipat means pratiksha rupena. You have to become fully surrendered. So when you accept a spiritual master, there is no question of arguments. You can pose your questions in a submissive mood, but you cannot get into arguments or challenging mood. So this is the first quality of a disciple. He becomes submissive. He knows, I cannot solve this problem. He's not with a false ego, with false understanding, I'll do it. Sometimes some people are there. But this is a question of existence, Baba. It is not a question of 1 + 1. मेरे को याद नहीं आ रहा है, किसी को पूछ लेता हूँ, या मैं खुद ही I'll solve it. After 2-3 days, you solve it also. It's a question of life, of how to act, how to live a life. How to live a life so that you're not bound by it. So most essential, Himadriji, is that one has to. It is a must. That's why it's mentioned here. Tad vignartam sa gurum eva vigachit. Eva vigachit means must accept. Vignartham. Vignartham means V actually is a Vilinga, which means very important. Jnanartham. Jnanartham, if you want to practice this knowledge, just not knowledge. Jnanartham. Artham means the meaning of that knowledge. If you want to know the meaning of that knowledge, what is essential? It's a must to accept a spiritual master. That's what the scriptures are urging all of us. Now, don't just accept anyone. Now, there are so many people in the market who have opened their, storehouses. Yes, we know who God is. We know what is this, who is this. Now, the next thing is, a very nice analogy Prabhupada gives. Say you want to purchase gold. You need to know certain kind of, at least basic characteristics of gold is. It's a metal. It's a precious metal. It looks yellow in color. It has certain kind of density. At least basics pata hona chahiye. Basics pata nahi hai, to kya hoga? You'll get cheated. And this is what is happening. You go to, you don't know what gold is, and then your wife tells you, please get me some gold necklace or whatever it is. And then you go to because you don't know what gold is, you go to a hardware house and then you tell, can you give me gold? And that guy is, arre yaar, customer mil gaya aaj to. What is that customer? Oh, this fool doesn't know even what gold is. Acha, what kind of color do you want? Do you want the green or the white or the yellow or the black? And he's like, oh, anything will work. I said, oh, that's nice. So he gets one copper plates it with some 100 rupees. And how much are you paying for that? 2 lakh rupees. 2 lakh rupees. Now that is what we call as cheating. Now what is this 2 lakh rupees? In our life, 2 lakh rupees is nothing but faith, श्रद्धा. इसलिए बोलते हैं श्रद्धा का धंधा चल रहा है. श्रद्धा का धंधा चल रहा है. इसका मतलब क्या है कि you are investing 2 lakh rupees. Your श्रद्धा on a person whom you feel is connected to the Supreme. And you see, your feelings doesn't work in these things. It's so simple. भाई घर में ना प्लम्बर का प्रॉब्लम है तो प्लम्बर को बुलाना है. आपका ना शरीर में कुछ इश्यू तो डॉक्टर के पास जाना है. सो जब डॉक्टर के पास आपको पता होना चाहिए, यू शुड नो वेदर दैट डॉक्टर इज अ प्रॉपर डॉक्टर और नॉट, और इज ही अ क्वैक. You should know the qualification. Similarly, you need to know the qualification of a spiritual master. Likewise, a spiritual master very clearly is written. Everything is given in the Bhagavad Gita. It's just like, the plate is ready for you to eat. You just have to open and start eating. And under a mentor, you ask questions. Prabhu, I'm not able. Come on. आ जाओ. कर्ण हो, भीष्म हो, द्रोण हो, I don't care. I have Krishna with me. Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, Yatra Partha Dhanurdaraha. Now, wherever, this is the last, almost the last verse of the Bhagavad Gita. Very interesting verse is there. In fact, I would like all of you to go back to the Bhagavad Gita and read this 2-3 times. And that verse goes like this. Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, Yatra Partha Dhanurdara, Tatra Shri Vijayo Bhutir, Dhruva Nitir Matir Mama. We are all looking for success, victory. Yes or no? So it's mentioned here. Wherever there is Krishna, the master of all mystics, and wherever there is Arjuna, the supreme archer, there will also certainly be opulence, victory, extraordinary power, and morality. That is my opinion. Can you imagine? So much Bhagavad Gita is offering. There is a lot of hope which Bhagavad Gita is offering. And it's not just some empty hope, It's just like, you remove the rice from the husk and you keep beating the husk. You don't get anything. Likewise, it's not like that. In fact, Bhagavad Gita is an ever fresh thing. Kahan se bhi uthakar khane lago. But read Bhagavad Gita as it is. Read. So I hope that second question. It's already 7:30.
It is. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for giving so much of attention to really take us to the right path on finding a guru, finding somebody who can help us, and maybe then things would really start, happening right. Who to surrender to, and that was a very important thing that you mentioned. If you're surrendering to somebody, you better check and test first. You need to know.
Exactly.
Prabhuji, we don't have much time. However, I'd like to, if you can, throw some light. There's a question that also came in, and there are a couple of questions that are coming in context of what you just said, that I need to go deep within myself, or I need to look out for somebody to help me do that.
Yeah.
I need to have somebody to surrender to. How can we encourage children to go on to these, to this path? So there's a question that came from a couple of parents right now, that how do we help children on this path? Because I would not know. I have not been able to go on to that path, but then listening to a few people, looking at the environment around me, those inputs encourage me to help my child move on to that direction. How can we really, guide children to that direction? I might not have an ISKCON temple near me. I might not have somebody I know around me. So what should be done for those kind of kids?
Oh, this is a very nice question. In fact, it's a question which we love to answer because it's talking about children. But just to bring, I missed a point of the last answer. I know in 2.47, which was mentioned, Many people think, oh, I'm not entitled to the fruit, so I should not do. So in the second part of the verse, which many people miss, it's ma karma phala hetu mate sangasta karmani. It is not that you become, oh, you're not entitled, so you don't do your duty. No, you're supposed to do your duty with detachment. Just for that note, it has to be done with detachment, and you need to have knowledge of what detachment is. That is a very deep subject matter which somebody can, one has to go into. Now, coming to the question of children, I don't know the age limit what or the age range you're trying to talk about. If that can be clarified, then I can give more inputs.
Early teens.
Early teens. Okay. Now, first thing is, if you have younger, I'll cover all the age groups. If you have younger kids below teenage, please remember, never force them to do any spiritual activity by force. Like for example, say you do some kind of a meditation. Like we all do meditation, we chant Hare Krishna mantra on beats. So when I chant Hare Krishna, I feel very delightful. I feel very, freeing myself from all these kind of encumbrances which are coming, or all the kind of problems which are there. I'm not saying the problems disappear. I'm saying I get spiritual strength to face the problem. In fact, that's what Bhagavad Gita is promising. Don't ever think, come to spirituality saying that, oh, I have become a devotee of Krishna, tomorrow all problems will dissolve and they'll all go away in air. It's an impossible task to think. It's absolutely wrong to think like that. You cannot change this world. Krishna can change, but Krishna wants us to first change our attitude towards life. If in a moment of second, everything can change for you, but what happens to your consciousness? Your consciousness not change. You're still the same person. Oh, I want to enjoy. No, Krishna says first you have to change this attitude of yours. So likewise, whenever we chant, we may feel very happy. Now you kind of force your child, and you should also chant. Like take an example of Aryaman, your son. Last time when I came to your house, I had a very nice discussion, and then I told him you should chant. See, when we associate pleasure with an activity and tell them how it's important. Now, youngsters, teenagers, they can understand because they very tech savvy and they are going through so many things in life. So don't try to instruct them like, I'm your father. Chanakya Pandit says, at a certain age, 16 onwards, never beat your child even by mistake. Achha, 10 to 16, after once he's crossed 16, you should be very, very friendly, just like a friend. He's speaking with a friend. Now, many times what is happening is we still carry that aura of I am a father, I am a mother, I am authoritative person, you should follow what I say. So what happens to these teenagers? They look for a person whom to reveal what they're going through, and they'll go and give it to some Tom, Dick and Harry, or some friend who will go and spread it on Facebook, on Twitter, on this. Oh, this guy is having a relationship, he's having issues with his relationship, and this, and then what happens to the person? He commits suicide the next day. Very unfortunate, because he really doesn't know. He's putting faith on a person who is actually who is not confidential. So whom should a child look for when he wants a confidential friend? It should be the parents. Now, I'm not saying that, it's mentioned in that, spare the stick and spoil the brat.
Yeah, absolutely. Spare the stick and spoil. Yeah.
Something like that. I hope. I'm not saying that you spare them, but there is a proper way. There are many ways, just by slapping or hitting, it doesn't work. Please give up all that kind of traditional ways. There was a traditional way by where a stick used to work a lot. I remember in my days, my father used to scare me, and I was like, yes, I'll change. But now it doesn't work like that, because time changes, you need to change. Exactly the same thing what happened to Nokia. Nokia didn't change, but there were leaders in phones. I remember the first phone we bought at home was in 1998, was a Nokia. Today you look, Nokia, after some time, they didn't change. They were rigid to change. What happened? Gone. Of course, now they've come back. So likewise, if we become too rigid with our understanding of why these are traditional, this, that, there's a proper way to communicate that. And if you're not able to do that, learn how to do it. There are a lot of courses on parenting, but please remember, you should become spiritual parents, not just this ordinary parenting. Later on, again, that same child will get spoiled, because we have to give cultural values, moral values, spiritual values to our children.
True.
Because when they grow, when they're issues with them, they want to speak those issues. Just like, either a boy or a girl, both are going through certain kind of issues, because once you cross certain age, chemicals start overwhelming you. At the age of 7-8 years, nothing was happening to a boy or girl. They were all like, oh yes, yes. But then after certain age, the chemicals start getting injected automatically, and a lot of things from our subconscious mind are coming in. And today, very unfortunate, it can be extremely fatal. It all depends on how you use it. A knife, if it's in the hands of your mother, she'll cook nice, delicious food for you, or your wife. If it's in the hands of a thief or a bulgar, you're finished. So its knife is not wrong. Technology is not wrong. We use technology also in service of Krishna, in propagating this wonderful message, but it's the use of the technology. So the earlier Gurukul systems were how to give values to the kids. Now, our education system, very unfortunate, it does not do that. There's no character building. It's all, excuse me. It's all ranks and marks and comparison. Very nicely Einstein says, it's like telling a fish to climb a tree. How do you expect a fish to climb? You tell the fish you swim nicely. Have a competition in the water for the fish. It'll do wonderful. But if you tell it to climb the tree, it cannot. So likewise, we need to know what are the things our kids are good at. Harness them in that way. If they're not good at certain things, give them confidence and courage. Don't shout, hey, kuch nahi आता तो यार तू बेकार है यार उसको बगल वाली लड़की को देखो तो what did you do? Fail fellow, you're useless, you're nothing. And then the boys thinks, yeah, I'm useless, I'm nothing, I'm nothing. I mean, what are we doing to the kid? It's already going through a lot of trauma. Please take care. I mean, it's a living entity. It's somebody Krishna, God has given you in your lap to take care of. It's your responsibility. Don't think that, kids happen, ये हो गया, बच्चा हो गया, अब क्या करें? अब संभालना है. कैसे भी कर संभालना है, बड़ा करना है और फिर बाद ठीक है वो. Please remember, it's a divine responsibility. For that, you also have to become. In fact, the first gurus for the children are the parents. Very unfortunate today, parents don't know these things. So there's a huge gap. They should learn. They should become eager to learn and also help their children to learn. And that's what we are trying to give, a holistic picture of what the Vedic literatures are giving, the essence of that to the society, to everyone. Even for kids, we have programs for the kids also, we have programs for the parents also, we have programs for elders also, entire package for everyone. So that, no, don't mistake me, package means, ye marketing shuru kar diya. It's not like that. I said package because everyone is included in that.
Right.
Everybody is included in that. So I'll end here because we have another session going to happen, and I'm very happy to spend good time with all of you, and hope we can meet very soon again.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure of Srila Prabhupada and the Lord Bhagavad Gita, and hope you all got some wonderful inputs. If you want to also interact with me, I think Himadri ji, you can give, but please do remember, as a family, please interact. We have we have our own self-imposed restrictions, which like we would not expect a lady or Mataji to call separately. Please, if you're calling, call along with your family or at least your husband to be together so that we can give you further guidance. And in case you want to be counseled alone, we have a separate kind of a faculty, a Mataji, a lady instructor, who will further guide you in all whatever issues you're going through. So I hope you all understand us in the right light of mood. We are not here to discriminate anyone, but we are just telling that there are certain kind of restrictions, we self-imposed restrictions from the institute and our own self, which we want to have a proper way of culture.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for taking out so much of time. And towards the end, you've not only answered my question with the wisdom of your knowledge, but you've also told people that in case you're not able to find anyone, you are there and there are other people in the system who to help them. Thank you so much for being so generous and so kind and helping us see a little more of what I can do for myself in the days to come. Thank you so much once again. Hare Krishna to you.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.